Hey friends, hope you're well. This is Pastor Gavin with a video update. Today's Tuesday, June 9th, and I wanted to share with you by video as well as by letter what the relaunching committee worked on last night and is proposing. Um, what I'm going to be sharing here will be just a little bit more detailed than the letter that goes out, but it essentially will have the same information. So if you've already read the letter, don't think that if you don't make it to the end of this, you'll be missing out on anything vital. Essentially, first of all, we just want to say thank you for your patience and thank you for your support and your prayers. Thank you for your faithfulness in caring for each other, in tithing to the church, in just making it through this season. It's been very difficult for different people in different ways, for some more than others, but this has been a very challenging, trying season. My prayer throughout it has been, Lord, help this not to divide us, help it to unify us, help this season not to weaken us, but help it to strengthen us. And in line with Philippians 1, as we talked about on Sunday, if you listen to the sermon, somehow use these difficult circumstances to advance the gospel. And I just want to say thank you for praying for that with us and helping make that happen. In response to the surveys that you filled out, we are essentially wanting to implement what you as a church indicated you wanted. And the clear majority was that we relaunch services on Sunday mornings. So I'm going to talk through in this video the when and the how of that. But before I get into that, let me just mention a couple of the principles that have been on our minds as we've been thinking about the plan. So you're hearing not just kind of what we're going to do, but why we're thinking about it in these ways. The first thing that I want to encourage us to be aware of is that these services will look a little different. In fact, significantly different. Not forever, but when we first start at least, the services will feel a little different. And I'll talk about that in detail in a moment. The reason that we are responding to the government regulations that have been recommended to us is not out of fear, it's out of love. We want to take care of everyone in our church family, particularly those who would be in the at-risk category, which is many of us. And we want to create an environment that is as safe as possible. In addition to that, we want to be respectful of what the government is asking us to do. We want to have a humility about us and not be defiant. I think that's something that the scriptures call us towards in passages like Romans chapter 13. And this is really not there are exceptions to that, of course. There are times when the government, persecutes the church and requires us to denounce Christ or something like that, and we just have to practice disobedience to the government in those circumstances. When you have two conflicting authorities, you go with the greater authority, and that would be God. But this is really not a case of persecution. The government is not targeting churches more so than any other group. This is a special circumstance based upon a global pandemic. And so it's appropriate for us to take to heart the recommendations that have been given, but we're so grateful that we are allowed to meet at all. I want to encourage us as we move into the weeks ahead to continue to be diligent about something I feel we've done pretty well so far to the best of my ability to tell, and that is to be careful not to sit in judgment on other Christians or other churches for how their consciences lead them differently. How we reopen services and when we start attending is a matter of personal conscience, that we will make a decision before God, and we should not sit in judgment on others. And the Bible talks about issues like this. In Romans chapter 14, for example, Paul is speaking to these differences that existed among the Roman Christians about Jewish food laws, and there were genuine differences. There were some who were strong in faith and others who were weak in faith. And Paul says in his letter to the Roman Christians that they need to welcome one another and accept one another and not pass judgment on one another. They need to be patient with one another. They need to practice forbearance with one another. And the reason for all of that is we don't have to agree on everything in order to be the church together. There's first-rank doctrines, there's second-rank doctrines, there's third-rank doctrines. There's a great book that just came out about this. Um, and the details of how we relaunch is not a first-rank doctrine. This is not like the Trinity or the deity of Christ. This is something we need to be able to live peaceably and respectfully amidst differences. What that will mean is, as we relaunch, some will not feel comfortable coming yet, and we should make no judgments about that. Others will be diving right in. We make no judgments about that. The one person is not necessarily reckless, and the other person is not necessarily not having enough faith or something like that. This is a complicated situation, and it's reasonable for reasonable people to disagree and take a different approach. And let's just accept that. Let's just make room for that as much as we can. And I know you'll do that. We've been doing that thus far fairly well, I think. So that's just a reminder about that. Also, for those who don't start attending, nothing will change for you. I'll still be recording a sermon each week and sending that out to you, so you'll still have that option. So nothing is being taken away from you. But this is just giving those who have the desire to meet, we have that chance. We're starting that process, and it will be a process. I'm sure the regulations will change over time and things. In fact, everything I'm about to say in terms of these plans is provisional. It might change. The next few weeks are going to be significant in terms of whether the government regulations change, and also in terms of whether COVID-19 spikes and how much. And so we're continuing to keep our eye on things. We can change course at any moment. So we're not locking ourselves into anything here, but this is our plan, provisionally so. So we are going to be relaunching 2 Sunday morning services starting June 28th. It's a couple of weeks away. For June 14th, this coming Sunday, we'll have a Zoom gathering, perhaps our last one of those for a while. The following Sunday, June 21st, we'll send out a sermon by video, as we've been doing, and then we'll start our relaunched services on June 28th. The services will be at 9 and 10:30 in the sanctuary. Some wanted to meet outside, but there was enough concern about that. Again, we're going with what the majority opinion was here. There was enough concern about noise for the neighbors, the heat, and various other factors that complicated that option. If that was your preference, sorry about that, but we're going with the majority preference, which was in the sanctuary. 25% of our maximum occupancy is about 55 people. So we're going to ask that you would sign up on our website, and that will be available starting this Thursday, for which service you'd like to come to, so that we can make sure that we have a maximum of 55 in both. And it'll be sort of a first sign-up basis. So as soon as it fills up to 55, then only the other service will be available. I don't think we'll exceed both services. If we do, we'll tackle that and we'll figure something out. One option is overflow seating outside. Okay, now here's the hard part. Here's the protocol for these services. First of all, we do want to encourage those over 65 and those with health conditions that make you vulnerable to the symptoms of COVID-19 to remain home. If you come and you're 66 years old, we'll welcome you, but that's our encouragement to you. Or any age, we'll welcome you. There's not a cutoff. If you are feeling ill, please don't come. We just want to take extra care not to take any risks to transmit the virus to someone else. And if there's a possibility that you have it, then we need to take that seriously. Out front, instead of greeters who will welcome you with a handshake, we're going to have a check-in desk just a little bit to the side of the front door. We're going to ask that everybody check in before coming in. And that's for 2 reasons. Number one is we want to provide hand sanitizers for you that you can use before entering, and then we're going to ask if you'd be willing, after touching any surfaces, to reapply hand sanitizer, and we'll have some throughout the sanctuary and in the foyer. And also we want to provide a mask for anyone who doesn't already have one. Now here's perhaps one of the more difficult parts of the protocol is, in the city of Ojai, it is required for us to wear masks. And so we have to comply with that as we gather. I know that some will feel uncomfortable with that, and I understand that. Wearing a mask is not the ideal. It removes the human element a little bit. Please understand that wearing a mask is not for your protection, it's for the protection of others, primarily. Let me speak to this, okay? there are some who won't feel as comfortable coming to the service if everyone's not wearing a mask. Therefore, wearing a mask can be an act of Christian charity to others. It can be a way of laying down our rights and laying down our preferences for the sake of the comfort and good and well-being of another person. You know, in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, Paul says, "If eating meat causes my brother to stumble, I will never eat meat again." And it's a beautiful thing for us to have regard for others. In Philippians 2, to put the interests of others ahead of ourselves, because that's what the gospel is all about. That's what Jesus has done for us. So wearing a mask is a way we can practice love for our neighbor. And that's been our guiding thread actually throughout this whole season. That's what we're after. How do we love each other? How do we care for each other? That's what this has all been about. So, we are going to comply with our city regulations, at least as we start off. We will provide a mask for you if you do not have one. And I hope that you will, even if you think that wearing a mask is totally bogus, I respect that opinion. But you know what? Eating meat is also not wrong. There's nothing wrong with eating meat. But Paul says, if that causes someone to stumble, then don't do it. And so maybe that's a way that we can love one another, is lay aside our rights, lay aside our opinions, and do what will make others feel most safe and most comfortable. Here's another downside. We will not be providing childcare for this service, for these services on the 28th and for the immediate future. Obviously, we will do that as soon as we can. This could change between now and the 28th, but as of now, that is the plan, to not have childcare. The reason for that is it's simply impossible to follow the guidelines while having childcare. And most of the other churches that are starting are not doing childcare for that same reason. I'm really sorry. As a young parent, I'm sensitive to the challenge that puts on our young moms and dads. I wish that wasn't the case. As soon as it need not be the case, it won't be. But for now, that's where we're at. You are more than welcome to bring your kids into the sanctuary. We're just going to be okay with noise. If there's a crying baby or something, we're going to be a little more patient with that now. And the service will be just a little briefer, more like 60 minutes rather than 70, and a little bit have a little bit of time for interaction, because I know we're also hungry for fellowship. One of the recommendations is to not have congregational singing, but we're going to try to get around that by having times where Ernie and perhaps others in the band, possibly, potentially, will play music for us, and it'll be worship in that sense. And then we'll have some time to be more interactive and pray for each other and care for each other. I actually think right now, since so many of us are so hungry for fellowship, that will be really valuable. I think that'll really meet some needs. And then we'll have a sermon, and it will be a little bit more interactive. So it might feel a little more family friendly anyway, hopefully, where this will feel different. The service will feel different. Two other things I need to mention here. This is all in the letter too. You can read through this. We are going to be maintaining the 6-foot social distancing throughout the service. The capacity of 55 people will help with that, and we'll be removing some chairs, so that'll be easier to do that. And we'll also have the flow of traffic moving in one direction, because it'll be really hard to have traffic jams if people are going in and out constantly. So we're going to ask that after you check in at the check-in desk, you come in the front doors, and then after the service, we'll open up this door on the south side of the sanctuary, kind of near where the Christmas tree is, sometimes at Christmas, as well as the hallway door, and then the door in the hallway near the conference room, and the Operation Blessing supply room, and that area. We'll have ushers open up those doors, and we'll ask you to leave in that direction. So that way there's one flow of traffic before and after the service. And that'll just minimize challenges of people bumping into each other. And this is a hard part, but this means we're not going to be able to be giving each other big bear hugs and handshakes and so forth when we see each other, much as we're going to want to. And again, the motive for that is love. We want to make everybody feel safe and everybody be safe. And even if your opinion is, oh, that is completely unnecessary, please understand that the feelings of others are also important. And some people feel very uncomfortable with getting a big hug in the midst of the circumstances that we're in right now. And even if you know the person won't feel uncomfortable with that, it's it's something we're all in together, and it's something we all want to be consistent with together. So as much as that's going to be difficult, we'd ask that you respect that policy, and thank you for understanding. I think that's just about it. Um, Let me see if there's anything else. The service elements will look a little different. One other thing is we won't have a greeting time during the service, obviously, and we also won't pass the offering plate, but we'll have a station where you can drop off your offering. My final comment would just be, please do understand an enormous amount of thought, prayer, and consideration went into this plan. This plan is the best response we can have that aggregates the congregational wishes that were expressed in the survey. In other words, this is the way we can meet the most needs and respond to the most wishes. We do recognize that it doesn't respond to every need and every wish. If you have any concerns, if you have any questions, if you have any struggles, let's talk about it. You could reach out to us on the relaunching committee and just relaunch@fbcohigh.org by an email, or you can call the church and set up a time. I'd love to talk with you. We'd love to explain anything more if anything is unclear. The bottom line is this. Now that it is legal for us to regather, we wanted to be careful. We didn't want to rush into that, partly because the service will feel so different. And there's, we kind of, we do recognize this is not the ideal way to do church. And so that was a consideration for us. We also wanted to just give time, prayer, reflection, consideration of all the different factors that go into this. And there are many. There are lots of legal factors we have to consider, liability issues we have to consider, for example. So I thank you all for your patience and your understanding. I appreciate the difficulty of this for you. I do. We need each other. We need bodily presence. It's not healthy to not meet. It's not fun to not meet. It's hard. And it's been hard. I am so glad that we'd be able to do this. And I'm also glad because I am hopeful that we will continue to be able to make tweaks and adjustments that will meet even more needs as we go forward from June 28th. If anything changes about this plan, we'll let you know as soon as we know anything. And since I'm at 18 minutes here, I'm going to stop this video. I apologize that I talked so long, except that I just want to explain things as clear as I can. I love you all. Thank you for your patience. If you have any concerns or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And would you join me in praying that the Lord would be at work even in all these plans and in all these circumstances, and that even where we have to flex, that we would see that as an occasion to love one another and lay down our rights, and also that the gospel would advance in this time, and that God would be using these terrible circumstances that are going on throughout the world in a variety of ways to advance his kingdom, and that many people would come to know Jesus in this time. Let's put our focus on that. Let's lay aside our preferences. Let's lay aside our rights. Let's lay aside our opinions. Let's focus on Jesus and say, Lord, I'm going to lay down my particular things, and I'm going to look to the bigger picture here, and I'm going to seek to serve you and serve your people. That's hopefully where our focus can be, and thank you, because I know it is for you. Love you all. Looking forward to seeing you Zoom this Sunday and in person on the 28th. May the Lord bless you.